Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us today. The webinar will start momentarily. We're just letting people file in. Hello, everyone. This is Ashley McHugh from InsuranceNewsNet, and I will be the administrator for today's webinar, The Year in Annuities, 2020 Hindsight with Sheryl J. Moore. Moderating the webinar is Steve Morelli, the editor-in-chief at InsuranceNewsNet. Steve has been with INN since 2008, following a long career in newspapers. He will be speaking with Sheryl J. Moore, the president and CEO of Moore Market Intelligence and Wink. Sheryl has been the ultimate insider in the annuity business for decades. We rely heavily on her data and insights. We at InsuranceNewsNet would also like to take a moment to thank our sponsor, Advisors Ignite USA, an IMO based in the Chicago area. The founders, Steve DeJean and Mike Dressander, have 35 years of experience in the industry with over $6 billion in annuity sales. They are proud to sponsor this webinar today. And with that, I'll turn this over to Steve.
Hey folks, thanks for joining us today. It's been a challenging year for annuities, of course, especially in the second quarter. Now we had some surprises in the third quarter, and we're going to be looking at those today, along with a peek into the fourth quarter and into next year. So during our discussion, if you have any questions, please ask them down in the Q&A box at the bottom. We'll try to get as many as possible at the end of this discussion. And there will also be 3 polls during this webinar, so please be prepared for that. And with that, I would like to ask our friend Sheryl J. Moore to join us.
Hey there, Steve. How are you?
Excellent. How are you doing today?
I'm great because I've got my favorite shirt on.
Oh, yeah, there it is. There it is. Yep, we know that well. Love annuities. So actually, you were a great help to me when I started back in 2008 with InsuranceNewsNet, understanding annuities, the complex world. And how long have you had your firm?
Well, I've only been running the firm for 16 years, but I've been a life insurance and annuity geek for 22.
Absolutely. And how many companies do you have reporting to you now?
I think it's about 180 across all lines of business that we report on. And we still have a couple more lines of business that we're going to expand into, so that will widen our reach.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool.
Yeah.
That would be something to look forward to. So what percentage would you say of companies?
Well, because we break apart sales really uniquely, we even separate out multi-year guaranteed fixed rate annuities from 1-year fixed rate. It depends on the line of business, and it generally ranges between 90% to 100%. I think probably there is one line which is only like 85%, because we do have some big mutuals that want their information kept proprietary.
Mm-hmm. Well, certainly is a preponderance on the market, so it's thorough. So as I mentioned in the outset, it's been, well, of course, crazy year, but the third quarter had a couple of surprises in it, and so you have some charts you can share with us today, and to walk through what you saw in sales in the third quarter. And Ashley, can you put those up, and so Sheryl can walk through some of those?
Yeah, I really appreciate your help, Ashley. Steve, I really dig this stuff. I also like to joke around that I really love pie because I'm into the charts and graphs so much. But we talk about, the fact that deferred annuity sales are, up 18%. I have a lot of people saying, oh, great, index annuity sales are up. And I'm like, no, that's all annuities are up 18%. They're actually down 1% from last year. But then the next question is, well, okay, when you talk about deferred annuities, what are you including in that data set? So As you see from our pie chart here, really the vast majority of those sales are coming in on variable annuities, but then surprisingly, multi-year guaranteed annuities make up the next greatest market share, and then index annuities come in after that. And that's generally not the case, Steve. Now, when I started this business 16 years ago, VA sales outnumbered index annuity sales 4-1, if I remember accurately. And really, index annuities have come in at second place pretty much ever since then. So it's unusual to see MIGAs taking up such a strong market share. So when we talk about individual business lines, Ashley, let's go ahead and take a look at the next slide. People were really expecting that index annuities would do better this quarter just because fixed interest rates are at historical lows. And I've kind of created a chart to let you see how sales of each one of those business lines have flowed throughout the years. And as you can see, the index annuity share is dropping. So let's look at the next slide that'll show us specifically how fixed annuity sales have been faring. And keep in mind, this is deferred annuities that have a rate that's guaranteed for a single year. And I think a lot of people would say, well, who cares about that? You know, I don't sell fixed annuities. Fixed annuities aren't really a mainstay, especially in the independent agent distribution right now, just because when rates are unattractive, fixed annuities don't sell. That said, fixed annuity sales are down 33% from this time last year. So let's go ahead and advance to the next one, and that's going to show you indexed annuity sales, which really have been the darling of the fixed annuity market, probably since about, I want to say 2005 or so. Indexed annuity sales tend to do really, really well when we're in a very low interest rate environment. And it's even better if we have a volatile market environment where consumers are maybe saying, you know what, I just remembered, I don't like losing money. So I want something that's got greater potential than a certificate of deposit, but I want to be able to, you know, guarantee that I won't lose any money. So index annuity sales fare really well in those environments, but we had a wild card that's come up this year that we'll talk about in just a second. Ashley, if you would advance to the next slide so that we can take a look at structured annuity sales. Now, Steve, I know you and I are going to talk a little bit about this. Structured annuities are what some folks call registered index-linked annuities. Particularly, my competitors refer to them as RILAs. But this is a securities product, like a variable annuity. And as you can see, year to date, we are definitely going to break a record for structured annuity sales. Now, Steve, you have to take that for what it's worth, because we're only talking about a $22 billion market right now. It's not like variable annuities where, you know, in or index where we're 70. So that is definitely a line of business a lot of people are keeping their eye on, though. And let's go ahead and take a look, Ashley, at I believe variable annuity sales, or what we'll want to take a look at on the next slide. As you can see, there's a lot of up and down.
Well, Sheryl, actually, before you go on to this, I want to ask a little bit about MIGAs versus FIAs. And one thing was, interesting thing is how MIGAs and structured annuities are really tracking where FIAs were at the end of the 2008 crash. Mm-hmm. FIAs went crazy. And so both of these products are popping now. MIGAs and the structured annuities. So what is it that is doing that for?
Well, you know, so we really expected that, like post 2008, the indexed annuities would be faring the best because we've got this really low interest rate environment, we've got the market volatility, but we didn't really take into consideration that fixed interest rates are so much lower now than they were after 2008. I remember very clearly having insurance companies close their operations, not accepting new business on annuities, returning checks to people back then. And it was very challenging to price fixed annuities at that time, Steve. But back then, the 10-year treasury, which is our primary benchmark for pricing fixed annuities and index annuities, I think it was about 2%. And, you know, I think that at its lowest point, it was just below 50 basis points here within the past few months, and it's not even at 1% right now. So we have to think about the current environment relative to '08, but take this different lens and say, but yeah, wait, the fixed interest rates are much lower than they were back in '08. And that kind of throws a wild card into the mix, because that means people are maybe going to be looking outside of indexed annuities as a solution, because there were a lot of MIGAs where people have that 1%, 2%. We had some that had floors of 4% during the quarter. And so the value proposition is, hey, do you want this indexed annuity, which may return 3.5% to 5.5% over the life of the contract, or would you prefer to have this guaranteed 4% every single year with no risk of any 0% interest in any year? So it really is interesting to see how the low interest rate environment has really affected those two different products, index annuities and multi-year guaranteed annuities, very differently. It speaks really well into behavior psychology and how the market environment really affects their decisions.
Well, also it's, I guess, a simpler sale, because FIAs are hard to explain anyway, even if you're, you know, elbow to elbow with somebody.
Yeah. Don't get me started, Steve.
Well, we want to get you started.
Well, you know, when I was, I would say, in the infancy of my business, 16 years ago, we had 12 different indexes upon which you could earn indexed interest. And at that time, I would say generally interest was limited through a cap most of the time. I would say that the S&P 500 index accounted for probably more than 80% of all allocations on indexed annuities. And today, you know, I think the last time I counted, Steve, we had 120 different indexes upon which to base your indexed interest. And I think that that can be overwhelming if you're a salesperson. And you have to keep in mind, our index annuity salespeople began as MIGA salespeople. That was the bread and butter of this industry prior to 2000, really. So it's very comfortable for someone to step back from indexed annuities at a time when it doesn't look as attractive, maybe it's confusing, maybe it's something that they feel like the consumer may have a better time digesting the simpler product. And that's why MIGA is really shining right now.
Yeah. And also that rate you were talking about, like a carrier or two, or whatever, going up to 4%, that's pretty great. I mean, how are you managing that? Do you have any insight?
Well, you know what? That's something we haven't really talked. Yeah, that's something we haven't really talked about before, Steve, but it's an interesting phenomenon. We have a couple of startup insurance companies which are brand new to the industry. Some of them have not even been rated by AM Best or S&P, and some of them have some lower ratings but are just trying to get in and get established. And often these type of companies want to come in and offer a very attractive multi-year guaranteed annuity rate so that they can, I don't know how to put this, buy business and get people used to working with them. And then they oftentimes will pivot over to a focus on index annuity sales for their day two product development. So I think that what we're seeing here is not just how attractive those rates are for carriers that have already been established, but also some stiff competition from some newcomers.
Yeah. And I imagine it's always been, or at least I remember learning at the beginning that it really was a sale against CDs in some respects, that is as safe as a CD, you get better return than a CD. And that certainly speaks to that, doesn't it?
Well, you know, I know the regulators really don't like people comparing annuities to certificates of deposit, but we are competing for the same money, Steve. We are. Mm-hmm. And I would just add the caveat to what you said that, but Steve, an annuity gives a guaranteed paycheck for the rest of your life, and a CD does not have that. Plus, this is a tax deferred instrument. So our biggest problem is that almost every American knows what a CD is, and most Americans have no idea what an annuity is.
Yeah, it's the perennial problem. So I interrupted you in your journey here.
Oh, no.
VAs here.
Yeah, not at all. I did want to show people that variable annuity sales have really been challenged since the market collapse of 08, 09. And although the sales are still thriving and they're getting the market share that they always have relative to other types of products like index and fixed, they just haven't quite hit the records that they did prior to the 08 market crisis, because people who sold variable annuities back then had a very different product than what you have today. So generally the fees for the writers, which are often a must-have on these sales, have sometimes doubled or even gone more than 200%. And there's often a lot of fund restrictions now for the client's allocation, which did not exist prior to 2008. So it's this de-risking of the annuity product itself, and the salesperson thinking to themselves, I can't sell this. Relative to what I was selling in 2008, this is not consumer friendly. This is not attractive. And so we're seeing a lower election rate of living benefit writers on VAs and an overall softening of sales since the market environment 12 years ago. So Ashley, why don't you hit the next slide for me? Want to talk a little bit with you, Steve, about what we were seeing that surprised us as we were compiling sales. The Wink office is so fun and so cool. I'm actually the second oldest person who works here, which keeps me young. But as we're getting insurance company sales after the end of the quarter, it really is this really geeky, nerdy, fun environment where everybody gets copied on the sales submissions by the insurance companies. And it'll be like, oh, American Equity just sent in their sales, or we just got Jackson National sales. And we're all psyched to see how the companies did relative to the prior year or the prior quarter. And I just started hearing more and more of the staff, yelling out over several days' time, oh my gosh, XYZ insurance companies, MIGA sales are up 1,000+%. And I'm like, really? And so I go and I take a look at how that company's rates have looked throughout the quarter, and wow, it's really attractive. Because you have to remember, Steve, when I started this business 16 years ago, it was me sitting at my dining room table with HTML for Dummies, putting all that data in myself, So I'm a little bit further removed from it today, but my staff does a fantastic job. And they've been saying, Sheryl, I also wouldn't be surprised if when you get such and such company sales, if they're up just as much or greater. And sure enough, we had so many companies that increased their market share in the MIGA space. It's ridiculous. But then the other thing is, I'm really excited about structured annuities. And I know that that's probably surprising for you to hear from me, because you probably
and let me interrupt. Were you thinking that this might be a chart that we could share, or
no?
Okay,
nope.
All right.
I just wanted to talk a little bit about how that dynamic has changed, because the MIGA product generally does not sell well in a fixed interest rate environment, Steve. It really doesn't. But because we had that other market force, which is really, really low rates on indexed annuities, it benefited MIGA sales tremendously. And so I was really excited to see that, just because we got to keep it simple. I've been preaching about this since 08's market collapse and saying, hey guys, it's not about upside potential. That's not what you should be focusing on, because the guarantees are what consumers want so badly. And it seems like people are coming around and saying, yeah, I do remember how easy that sale was. I do remember that my client likes the simplicity of just knowing they're going to get 4% or 3.5% every year. But the other interesting thing is that I'm eating my own words on structured annuities, Steve.
Yeah, I know you mentioned that you actually jumped in. And actually, you can stop sharing this, I think. Because that's the last slide in that. So But yeah, I heard you say that you actually made the leap.
So I have simplified pension. I made a huge dump into myself and my employees' retirement fund every year. And whatever percentage I choose for myself is the same percentage of their salary that they get. And what I've done is, allow everyone to choose their own vehicle for their plan based on their risk tolerance. And I am generally choosing annuities. Now, I think a lot of people in this industry who know how passionate I am about indexed annuities would feel like I'm a traitor to hear that I would purchase anything other than an indexed annuity. But, I had been buying multi-year guaranteed annuities for several years, and my advisor pushed me out of my comfort zone this year. I actually bought a structured annuity.
Yeah, that was brave of him. Yeah. Actually, before we go to a poll, on unstructured annuities, what is it you think is really pulling people in now? It's kind of a. I remember first learning about them. It was kind of a mixed message almost, but it seems to be more clear for people now. Can you talk to us a little bit about what's so attractive about it?
Yeah, so just for the benefit of our participants who are less familiar with the product, a structured annuity is kind of like a middle ground between a variable annuity and an indexed annuity. So like an indexed annuity, the indexed interest is limited, but more like the VA, the annuitant can lose money as a result of market fluctuations. But relatively speaking, the losses are limited by a floor, which is negative generally, and they are capped or limited on the upside, but generally more attractive than what's being offered on the indexed annuity. So there's several things going on here, Steve. First of all, there's a lot of securities folks who stayed away from indexed annuities for a long time just because the security status wasn't really clear. We had the NASD or FINRA proposing notice to members 0550. Then we had SEC's Rule 151A, and a lot of folks outside of independent agent distribution said, I'm not touching these indexed annuities with a 10-foot pole. I don't know how they're going to be regulated. I don't want any liability associated with them. And so securities registered reps generally stuck to variable annuities as a result of that. But what we've seen is that a lot of those folks who are selling VAs have come back because of the de-risking of those products since 2008 and said, I don't think index annuities are bad. I'm going to start selling these products. But now we've got this market environment where really the upside potential for gains on index annuities is limited, and relatively speaking, limited more than it ever has been in the past 25 years index annuities have been available. And so they're saying, is there something better? Well, yeah, if I have clients that are okay risking losing a little money, but still want to outpace indexed annuities, this structured annuity is a good fit.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Ashley, why don't we put up our first poll?
So I've just launched the first poll. We just want to get some information from the audience. The question is, what is your role? Annuity agent or advisor, wholesaler or distributor, insurance company, or other? And I'll give you guys just a few moments here to get your results in, and then we'll share.
Steve, I can't help but notice that you don't have a selection for annuity rock stars, so I won't be participating.
Well, it's class of one. So we know that yes.
All right, so it looks like about 41% of our audience is an annuity agent or an advisor. About 20% is a wholesaler or distributor. 21% it works for an insurance company, and 18% is in the other category.
Cool. Actually, Ashley, why don't we do the second one too as on our product?
Yeah, you got it.
Cool.
So the next question we have for you is, what annuities do you sell? Immediate or income, declared rate, fixed index, registered index linked or structured, or variable?
Which segment is going to win? I can't wait to see.
It's a little dramatic.
Well, I'm very competitive. You know that, Steve.
Yes, I do know that.
All right, Cheryl. Well, it looks like fixed index won, coming in at 82%. Immediate or income is around 44% of our audience. Declared rate is around 33% of the audience. Registered index linked or structured is 16%, and variable is coming in at 28%.
Okay.
That was
cool.
pretty expected.
Yeah. Okay. So no surprises in that?
Not at all.
A lot of FIA people out there. Pretty
I
cool.
can't imagine why that would be.
I don't know. I don't know why they would come on this webinar. So how is the fourth quarter looking? Are the trends holding up? Is there anything different going on?
Well, I mean, this entire year has had something different going on, Steve.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, and I think that generally when I'm talking about the challenges of selling annuities, we're talking about interest rates or market performance. But this year, there have been some variables that I've never had the opportunity to see in my lifetime. Certainly, salespeople not being able to meet with prospects or clients face to face, insurance companies having to quickly pivot because of COVID-19 and develop marketing and support and administration that's associated with virtual sales. Certainly, the marketing organizations and brokerage general agencies that help distribute these products to salespeople have had to suddenly learn how to transform their business to support virtual selling. And it's been a huge amount of disruption to the annuity market. Certainly not as much as the life insurance industry, because we have more challenges there, getting people's blood and urine and doing parameds. But the annuity industry has faced a ton of challenges this year. So yes, there have been some challenges. I think that those are going to continue through fourth quarter. Now, I always tell people fourth quarter is our strongest quarter. And I don't care if you're talking variable annuities or fixed or index. Fourth quarter is a strong quarter for all lines of business relative to all other quarters. But I'm not projecting that fourth quarter of 2020 is going to be stronger than fourth quarter of 2019. And I don't think we're going to be hitting any sales records, probably save structured annuity sales.
Mm-hmm. Will it do better than the third, do you think?
Oh yeah. We're going to do better than last quarter, but you have to keep in mind, third quarter disrupted in a totally different way because we had a lot of home offices making personnel changes too. And what I'm hearing is there's a lot of frustration about the quality of service with a lot of the home offices at that point. And that's going to affect how salespeople feel about submitting business to certain companies who may be developing kind of a reputation for having administrative or operational challenges.
Can you share with us like an example of what that would be? What kind of challenge?
Yeah, so let's say that an annuity application is not in good order, meaning there still are some requirements that need to be fulfilled before the contract can be issued. What I'm hearing from salespeople is that sometimes those contracts will be not in good order and they're not hearing about it as promptly as they used to. And when they call in to try and get resolution, they're holding very, very long hold times and maybe having to speak to numerous people in order to actually get something resolved. And that's not the kind of service I'm used to hearing people experience in this business.
Yeah, it's a challenge everywhere.
Yeah, and it's not isolated. I will say it's numerous companies that are dealing with this challenge. Certainly it's not across the board with all companies, but it's significant enough with a number of companies that I'm hearing some agents starting to say, I'm blacklisting this company. I'm not doing business with them anymore until they get things turned around.
Yeah. Well, speaking of distributors, I know I've seen you on LinkedIn. You're talking about layoffs quite a bit.
Yeah.
Can you give us a sense of how big that is right now?
Well, one of the things I'm known for is being a huge connector of people. I'm one of the most connected people in the life insurance industry, and nothing pleases me more than to introduce people who can help one another. And so I frequently will help insurance companies find talent or help people who have been displaced through merger, acquisition, a move to another state to try and find a new home, so to speak. And you probably know I'm a very sensitive person. I'm very empathetic. Certainly my own experience working in a home office has contributed to that. And so I take notice when there are significant layoffs with insurance companies. And that's just because I live in Des Moines, Iowa. I don't know if you knew, we're the annuity capital of the world, Steve.
Oh, I know. I know.
We are also the second largest insurance capital in the US, and I'm a big believer in Des Moines. I'm a huge cheerleader. And so when I notice these kinds of layoffs, they're personal for me. And I worry about my neighbors and my friends in this industry. And so I've really been digging into this a lot. And, you know, at first where it's like, oh, I just heard this company laid off half their wholesalers. Well, you know, that's terrible, but they only have 75 wholesalers. So relatively speaking, I'm not entirely worried. And then a week later, it's like XYZ insurance company laid off 3,800 people. And we're talking about home office employees. We're not talking about distributors who work for the insurance company or even salespeople who are getting out of the business. Those things are happening, but all I'm really able to track is the home office collateral damage, because the insurance companies are required to notify regulators once they lay off so many people at once. I don't know if the threshold is 100. I can't remember if it varies by state, but we've lost close to 6,000 people through home office employment in the past couple of months. And that is significant.
Do you see that still going strong, the layoffs? Is it ebbing at all? Anything like that?
Well, one thing I think that's important for, you know, folks who are less familiar with home office culture to understand is some of this is seasonal. You know, it's not unusual to see insurance companies making layoffs in the fourth quarter just because we're coming to the close of the year and they're wanting to make their financials maybe look a little bit more attractive for stockholders. And that sounds terrible, but it's the culture of our business, Steve. I mean, there's a lot of mergers and acquisitions. We tend to see a lot of senior people with expertise, you know, lose their positions to younger people who can get paid less. But it's all part and parcel of being involved in the insurance industry. But there has been one segment that has been tremendously hard hit, and I don't think that they're likely going to have jobs to come back to, and that would be the wholesalers.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's significant. What kind of positions are you talking about when you say the wholesalers?
Yeah. So generally, you know, companies have feet on the street. Folks who are technically home office employees, but maybe in addition to some sort of salary, they're getting some incentive pay based on sales that they help bring in. So they're traveling around the country if they're an external wholesaler and meeting face-to-face with distributors or directly with insurance salespeople, depending on the insurance company's distribution model. And they're, you know, meeting with people, giving them reason to want to do business with them, kind of solidifying why they value the relationship, often doing a lot of wining and dining. And then two, their internal wholesaler counterparts that are basically serving as a liaison or troubleshooter support person for the external wholesalers. These folks are losing their jobs more than any other segment just because we can't travel right now, Steve. Yeah, and so these road warriors are trapped at home, and insurance companies have said, well, let's try and do this through Zoom, you know, and when they have found that it's working, you know, why do I have to pay this gal or this gentleman 6 digits in terms of payroll and incentive pay if I can pay, you know, this young, dynamic, entrepreneurial young person with less experience to do it on Zoom? So a lot of these wholesalers have lost their positions, and likely many of them will not come back to the same position that they had before. So I'm really encouraging people to reinvent themselves at this point.
Yeah, there's a whole lot of that going
Yeah.
So looking into next year, what kind of trends are you seeing? How much can you peek into next year?
Well, in terms of product, I'm cautioning everyone that it is going to get much more challenging. The products are going to get even more complex because when I look at the life cycle of the interest rate environment and annuity product development, what we've always seen when interest rates are low is that product manufacturers or insurance companies complicate the sale a little bit because they need a way to make it sound attractive, even though technically speaking, it won't necessarily outperform the product that they had available the year before. And I think the best example I can give of that is, remember when we had like 56 different ways of calculating indexed interest on indexed annuities, Steve?
I do actually.
Yes. We used to have visual aids just to draw out how the indexing worked. And that phenomenon occurred because of low interest rates and insurance companies searching for ways to make their products look attractive. So we're going to see more of that, definitely. We're going to see much more embracement of technology and a streamlining of the sales process virtually. And there's going to be a huge focus on technology to assist with sales. But from a sales standpoint, I don't think things are going to immediately improve, but I am encouraged because I'm seeing the 10-year Treasury make a slow but linear uptick. That'll help in index annuity sales, but gosh, I got to tell you, if insurance companies aren't offering a structured annuity today, they really need to be working on research and development for that product line.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I guess it really is a time for the simpler products, and will be for the first part of next year at least. So with the Biden administration coming in, what kind of effect do you foresee in that on regulation in particular, but wherever you want to go with that?
Well, Steve, my grandfather was a longtime agent for New York Life, and he always cautioned me that there are a couple of things you don't discuss in public, and one of them is politics. But I am a political science major, so I'm really intrigued about what has been going on with the presidential election. And I've been watching Biden and trying to get a feel for what are his initiatives, what are the things that are important to him. Anytime there's somebody who's taking a new leadership position in this business, whether it be the president of the United States or the new commissioner of the SEC, I want to know what do they care about, because that helps me get some insight as to what that means for potential change for our industry. And I think Biden's got a lot on his plate right now. I don't think that immediately addressing annuities or life insurance is even in the hemisphere of what he's looking at that he has to tackle coming in. But I'm going to warn everybody and say, don't become complacent. Don't get comfortable just because there is going to be more change, Steve. And when I say that, I am talking about best interest regulation. It's coming.
Do you see it being applied uniformly or starting DOL? And how do you see that playing out? Is it DOL first?
Well, because you've been reporting on it, we have a couple of states that have already imposed a fiduciary or best interest standard. If I remember correctly, Nevada was one of the first. We've also got New York, of course, with Reg 187. I think it was either you or John Hilton reported that Delaware, just within the past week, has talked about a best interest standard. So I think the states were really the first ones to say, hey, Department of Labor, I don't know what you've got going on here, but I'm pushing this best interest standard through. That doesn't mean that the Department of Labor isn't going to pursue it. We've really got the SEC looking at best interest, the Department of Labor, and all these state regulators. So I think what's going to happen is initially we're going to see it rolled out piecemeal at a state level, state by state. But at some point, and I think those who aren't as knowledgeable about home office operations may not understand this, but at some point, the insurance company is going to say, you're dealing with the best interest standard. I don't care if you're in Delaware or not. And that's because I'm not going to continue to support a best interest standard in 25 states and a suitability standard in the other 25. It's operationally more efficient to use one, and they're going to go with the lowest common denominator.
Well, meaning probably the toughest state, actually, right? So.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Standard. Yeah, right. What?
Well, and this is one of those cases where, you know, I like to joke about New York being this whole other island of regulation when it comes to insurance. But wow, can you imagine the whole country following New York's lead? That'd be interesting.
Yeah, I think you caused some palpitations on our audience. Actually, I think we should probably turn to some questions here. Ashley, we had a couple in advance, I think, that we could start with.
Sure.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so the first question we had here is, do annuity companies think that they can go the route of asset managers and have a smattering of external wholesalers on the ground and mostly sell and support annuity sales via phone?
You know, I think that's a really good question, Ashley. But I think what we've even been seeing over the last 2 months speaks to the opposite of that. I think really what insurance companies are thinking is that they're going to, for the foreseeable future, not have feet on the street, but support the sales process entirely remotely and virtually.
Right. So do you think the complexity of annuities can actually be a call center sell?
No way. You know, I have been really excited about the potential for direct-to-consumer annuity sales. And when I talk about this, I'm talking about, you know, you see a commercial on TV that says, you know, concerned about guaranteed income for the rest of your life, call this number or whatever, and you could buy an annuity over the phone. Given the complexity of this product offering, we are nowhere close to where we need to be for a direct-to-consumer type sale. Now, if I were going to do it, I would sell multi-year guaranteed annuities or like SPIAs, income annuities, direct-to-consumer. But we've got this huge problem that we have to address first. And I know that I have 4 companies really that are dipping their toe into this direct-to-consumer market right now. And they would take well to listen to my warning. And it's that you've got a lot of groundwork you have to do in making people aware of what an annuity actually is and untraining all of the bad information that they've received about annuities or what they think they know about annuities. And that has to be tackled before you can move forward with a direct-to-consumer sale, whether it's through the phone or over the internet or what have you.
Well, let me ask you, so what would have to be untrained? I mean, are there a couple of things you can identify? I mean, anything in particular?
Sure. Well, let's just say we're talking about multi-year guaranteed annuities, Steve. And the client says, well, you know, I don't know that I know about annuities. I know that they lock up my money. So how does this work? Well, you're going to have to teach the consumer that annuities are intended to be a long-term investment, but you have liquidity that's available to you every year through most every insurance company through the penalty-free withdrawal feature. You have liquidity typically in the event of like nursing home confinement or terminal illness. And often what they're hearing is annuities have high fees. Annuities lock up your money. Your beneficiaries won't get your money when you die if you own an annuity. And all of those things are just not true at all. So you have to not only make them aware that annuity is a thing, but go back and reframe their understanding of the product because it's been framed very negatively for as long as I can remember.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, Ashley, proceed.
Yeah, the next question we have here is, do you see FIA rates increasing, decreasing, or stabilizing in 2021?
I do see them increasing, but not exponentially, Ashley, unless we have, you know, some kind of very rare market event and somehow we get the 10-year treasury back up to more attractive levels. it's not going to happen. But what's interesting is that I think a lot of salespeople and distributors might think that the environment is improving because they may be seeing new indexing methods or indices or ways of presenting the rate that make it look more attractive than it was before. But truly, it's just another way of showing the annuity and the potential that it has that makes it look more attractive, although it may not return any additional value than what was offered in 2020.
Right. So with that being said, do you see the Secure Act and Secure Act 2.0 increasing the sales of annuities?
That's a really great question. You know, I am grateful for the Secure Act because many of our participants are aware of the fact that I have kind of taken journalists to task when it comes to their reporting on annuities and life insurance. I generally correct all of the negative articles that I can find out on the web and try and build relationships with the journalists just because I want them to know that my market research firm is a safe and reliable place for them to get credible information about life insurance and annuities. But the one positive thing that I have seen from the Secure Act is that I'm actually seeing positive media about annuities. And that is like that's the holy grail. I mean, that's the whole of annuities. I've been looking for that for eons. So we are hearing some positive messaging about annuities because of the Secure Act. And a lot of people are saying, the Secure Act, I don't know what an annuity is. I read about that in this article. I need to find out more about that. So it's at least making the topic of annuity salient and something that people are questioning. But I'm also tempering folks and saying, you know, don't get too excited and think that you're going to be able to increase your sales because of Secure Act anytime soon, because the insurance companies are still going to have to lay a groundwork for administration and operations in order to comply with ERISA and all the requirements that are required with working with in-plan products. And then the insurance companies are going to have to find a way to distribute them through the employers. So they're building a whole new distribution. This is not something that's going to take place overnight.
Right. What is the future of annuities and linked benefit products?
You know, I am such a fan of linked benefit products, and I call them combo products. And this is really where we're talking about either life insurance or annuities being coupled with long-term care. And this is something I'm very passionate about because I was the primary caregiver for two different grandparents of mine and had to go through the process of putting them in long-term care. I will tell you, I have a tremendous amount of empathy for others who've gone through that process because it's completely demoralizing. But I do think that we should have a greater percentage of salespeople offering long-term care. But the huge objection about care is, hey, and if you don't use it, lose all that money. What's great about combo products is you can take the money that you would be using for an annuity or for funding life insurance, and you can actually use it for long-term care. And then if you don't need the long-term care and you don't utilize it, it's still available to use in your annuity or your life insurance. While this concept has taken off really well on the life insurance side, it has not been embraced at all on the annuity side, Ashley. So, I mean, the reason for that is that underwriting is typically part of the deal. And so you need to ask the client about their health and their family history. And that's, you know, that's really contrary to a lot of salespeople in the annuity industry. Relatively speaking, annuity sales are transactional. Life insurance is more relational. And it often takes, you know, upwards of a month or two to get a life insurance policy issued and for the agent to make a commission. On annuities, I can meet with a client. If they want to buy the annuity that day, I can get paid my commission that day. So, you know, talking about biologicals and family history and all of that is something that a lot of annuity salespeople feel out of their comfort zone with. They don't want to deal with, you know, the potential for buyer's remorse that can happen while a client's in underwriting on a life insurance contract, and they want to get paid right away. And so long-term care really works against all that. So I do have really two companies that are very strong in the combo market. But I would not say that the sales of their products, relatively speaking, are astronomical relative to companies that don't have combo products as a whole. And that's sad. It should be different. But I'm rooting for everybody.
The next question we have here is, please address the development of fee-based deferred annuities, which does include FIAs.
Yeah. Sometimes I kind of forget about them because they were such a big deal and there was so much focus on them when we were in the middle of, wondering if the Department of Labor was going to end up getting their way with the best interest fiduciary rule. And I will say the focus on them has really died down. There is one RIA that really has done a fantastic job about bringing visibility to them. And I'll say there's one insurance company in particular that, is really preaching that story strong relative to their peers. But when you look at sales of fee-based annuities as compared to commission-based annuities, they are not significant. In fact, total fee-based annuity sales contribute less than 5% of the annuity market share. So I think that it is interesting and I'm very excited about it because it causes new people to look at annuities and say, is this something that my clients would benefit from? Should I be talking to my clients about this? But it's a challenge too, because again, we're building an entirely new distribution. And I will say that generally speaking, part of growing that whole new distribution is again, reframing annuities to the salespeople, because what they've heard all their professional career is, this is something that's expensive, my client's money is going to be locked up, and it's not in their best interest. Right now, it's just, in my opinion, not a great value proposition for a fee-based product versus a commissioned, because the interest rate environment is so bad that the rate differential between those two products is not very big. So by not having a commission or a distribution expense in the annuity does not necessarily translate to a much more attractive rate for the client right now.
And also, I guess, the uptake among RIAs, right? They have an inherent suspicion of annuities.
Absolutely. And I'm grateful for all of the educating that the insurance companies and distributors who work in the RIA community are doing, but it's not dissimilar from the work we need to do in educating consumers about what it are. And I will say that generally, the objection is this one thing, and it's that, hey, I've heard annuities pay double-digit commissions, and so there's no way those are good for my clients. And so what we have to do is go, whoa, Hollywood. Back up a minute. First of all, there's one annuity that pays a double-digit commission, and it's generally only sold to the 403(b) market. So let's take that off the table. For annuities pay far less commission than you think they do, and that's a one-time commission that's paid up front. It's not something you can compare to your 1% of assets under management. I mean, over a 10-year period, you're getting paid 10%. And the annuity salesperson is making 6%. So it's not an apples to apples comparison. But yeah, that work is grueling. So I'm very grateful to the folks who are undertaking that and investing in a new distribution and the ability to get annuities out to more people.
Mm-hmm. Actually, I think we have time for one more question before.
Yeah, you got it. So the next one is, so would you, So another reason for the decline in variable annuity sales, do you think that's also due to the changes in the consumer's risk tolerance?
Well, when I look historically over the sales of variable annuities relative to the stock market's performance, what we see is there is a strong correlation between variable annuity sales and volatility in the market. So generally, when we're seeing the stock market go down, variable annuity sales also go down. And so I really think that supports the idea that when there is market volatility and people are seeing their variable annuity cash balances, they're saying, hey, maybe I need to reassess. I was great with the risk when I was getting 10% gains, but maybe I'm not cool with it now that I'm experiencing 10% losses. But that's just typical behavioral finance. I think that can be applied across many different types of product lines, not just annuities. absolutely. But variable annuity sales will continue to thrive. They're just going to be a little challenged, relatively speaking, against structured annuities or indexed while there's volatility in the market.
Mhm. And I'll remind people that when you're saying structured, they might know them as RILAs or registered index-linked annuities, just in case you're confused.
Well, you know why I don't like that, Steve?
Actually, I don't think I do.
Yeah. So there is one company that has a structured annuity, and they market it as an indexed annuity, but it's a securities product. And it does have risk. It just has this one allocation option that has a 0% floor like an indexed annuity. But what happened was FINRA got a little bit upset about some of the marketing and sales practices that they were seeing with that product line, and they released kind of a warning about indexed annuities. So everybody thinks, oh gosh, the securities folks are looking into indexed annuities again, but really what they were describing was structured annuities. And that's why I try and stay away from that terminology. Although regulatory speaking, the way they're filed, that's technically true. But from a marketing standpoint, I hate that label.
Yeah. So there's that confusion that across the board, I guess.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Sheryl, for doing this, taking your precious time and giving us your insights.
Hey, Steve. Great. I appreciate you. I love attention, and you guys get it for me. So thank you very much.
Symbiotic there. Ashley, why don't you take us out?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Steve and Sheryl, for a great webinar today. Thank you, everyone, for attending our webinar. You will be getting an email with a link to the recording. We again want to thank our sponsor, Advisors Ignite USA. They're an IMO based in the Chicago area. The founders, Steve DeJean and Mike Dressander, welcome any questions to them at Advisors Ignite USA. Their contact information is also on the screen. And keep an eye out for information about our next webinar in this series. Next month, we're going to be meeting with Jamie Hopkins from the Carson Group, and that will be January 13th. Have a great rest of your day, everyone. Thank you.
See you, folks.